for at least 20, 25 years. It's been empty. And we're fortunate enough to have got hold of the building to put a distillery in, which we're quite excited about. We're not builders, so don't ask me any questions about building work. I can tell you all you like to know about drinking, but not building, unfortunately. This will be the main distillery hall that we're stood in at the moment. And just through the little door there that we can have a quick look at if you're interested will be the visitor centre. So in the fullness of time when we're open, people park their cars, come into the visitor centre. There'll be a little bit of a bar there, tasting and enjoyment. And then organised tours will come through the distillery. We're going to be a little bit different from a lot of the micro distilleries. They're quite popular. So the building is getting separated off to a grain store. We'll receive the grain, put it through a milling process to get to the right consistency of the grain. Drop it into some brewery facilities at the far end, a mash tun and a lauter tun, which basically soaks the grain with hot water and lets the starch leach out of the grain. You then take that starchy water after about 4 or 5 hours out and put it into some big tanks along the wall, which will come at the end of the month, and drop your yeast in for the fermentation to take place. That's basically how you make beer. And to distill alcohol, you start with that basic process, getting up to about 9 to 10% base beer. Put it into one of these pots and boil it. And the steam that comes off, before water comes off, alcohol evaporates at about 75 degrees centigrade. So when you get to that simmering temperature, like if you're making a red wine, cooking through red wine, the alcohol steams off and goes up through the column and purifies all the way through. And then at the end of it, we get to 96% pure alcohol, which isn't particularly good to drink. But when you cut it back in water, you've got vodka. So this fill here will rise with 4 further columns, which come on Tuesday, pretty much up to the ceiling, and that still will make vodka. And from that vodka, we'll have another still which sits there, which will make gin. You basically take that pure alcohol, put some botanicals into it, mainly juniper, but other herbs and spices to give it flavouring, and you steam the alcohol through, picking up the flavours of the botanicals, and that's gin. And that's still there with a copper top. We'll have a big copper neck on it to about 4.5 metres somewhere up, just below the window height, like we've seen at whiskey distilleries, and that will make our whiskey. So we'll be making vodka, gin, and whiskey here, and a little bit of home brew in the brewery side. Tours will come in through the door, go up onto a platform, walk around, get taught, go through the whole process in a little bit more depth than I've just gone through now, be able to look into all the vessels, see what's going on, come through the fermentation tanks, and then back through the stills, and then land pretty much where you guys stood there. And at the back end there'll be a table where we'll have some tasting and some more education on the product. So that's what we're doing with this part of the building. Next door, which I think you guys are working on a project on, the ambition is to sort of have a nice bistro with maybe some windows punched through or some way to join this part of the building up with that part. When it was a pump house, there was a wall there separating the two functions, but it was very much one building doing one job, pumping out the docks. And we'd like to try and get that feeling back into the building somehow by, whilst this is the engine room, this would have been the boiler room creating steam to power the pumps. On the other side, we're going to be, if you like, the engine room creating the alcohol for people to enjoy on the other side. So we don't want it to feel like two separate businesses and two separate parts of one big building. It'd be nice to make it feel like it's all one. But clearly it needs to be separated because
pure ethanol at 98% is pretty explosive stuff. So you can't have people wandering around. It's quite a hazardous environment, hence all the ATEX lighting and the special fire systems and what have you. So there needs to be a physical barrier, but we want it to feel like it's joined up. Is there anything else you want me to say? No? Okay, so next door, as I say, the ambition is to have this lovely bistro facility to get people not only to enjoy the building from the outside, but to enjoy the building from the inside, because it's a great building with a lot of history. Obviously, it's going to cost quite a bit of money, so there's a potential to do a staged development, to look at maybe opening it up as a bit more of a pop-up facility to start with maybe a bit of a farmer's market on some days, inside farmer's market with coffee and baguettes or something. We're then on a Friday night, comedy night special. There's a little raised area, so maybe use that as a stage. But it's very much in sort of thought stage at the moment. But we'd like to use that space and get people in there and enjoy it. We're not quite sure how to do that at the moment. So, any ideas, gratefully received. So that's it. Any questions?
What's that temperature? Is there a certain temperature the room needs to be?
No, that's our boiler. So that generates the steam to power the stills. We won't be heating the facility. Our main issue when we're creating alcohol, when we're distilling, is actually getting rid of heat. And that's probably why it works really well in Scotland, because it's bloody cold. Obviously, what we do is we put heat into the vessel to heat the liquid to steam the alcohol off, and it's a vapour at the top. And then we need to condense that quickly to make it back into liquid. So we need to take all of the heat energy that we put in at the bottom out at the top. So obviously, if you're operating in a hot environment, if it's too hot, in midsummer we probably won't be able to distill because the ambient temperature will be raised within here anyway. And if it's 30 degrees outside, it could be 40 degrees or something, and therefore our ability to convert that steam back into liquid becomes quite costly. We're looking at all sorts of ways to try and do it in a very eco way. Obviously, the simplest way is to have heat exchangers and use more power to draw that heat out. We're actually going to be using some of our excess heat in underfloor heating. And we'll probably use some of it next door. But again, in summer, we don't need that. We need to get some of that. So there's a possibility we're looking into using the river and the marine water, the temperature that
Will we have time at the end just to photo? Yeah.
Probably.
business, we're very much focused on the outdoor side of things. We're not restaurateurs, we're not property developers, so this is something that would be nice to do. But as I said, we don't have any fixed plans to do things at the moment. And we're looking for some sort of sensible suggestions that means that we can use this space as quickly as possible. That, you know, with costs in mind, so that it's not all of a sudden going to be Rick Stein's next restaurant and fitted out with, you know, multi-million-pound schemes. But it is a great space. I mean, we've created these tables and benches and things just from some scrap. There's some great machinery that would be lovely to leave. It doesn't have to be here. It's not part of the listing, so it can be scrapped. But equally, it's kind of, you know, nice character and what have you, other than this horrible grey box, which kind of spoils the view. As I mentioned, it's got this raised platform. That's because underneath, although don't look at it, or don't look into it, there's a huge cavern underneath, which is where, when they converted from steam to electric, the electric pumps went into. And there is some groundwater issues that come up from the river, this huge well that go down below it. So subsurface is pretty, structurally, it's a minefield to try and deal with. So we're probably just going to look to cap this off and then sort of leave it as some sort of platform. As I said, if we have a music night or a comedy night, you know, with bars and tables or what have you around here, that sounds like a sensible suggestion. But over to you. Have a wander around, measure up, have a look at what you want, either find myself or Abby, if you've got any questions. Yeah. No, the crane, and some of these turning, you know, kind of, whether they're there, in the mark, maybe reposition, but yeah. But that's a lovely control panel as well.